And now, as we begin to transition and have a moderated discussion more into depth about U equals U, I'm going to introduce some amazing folks to the stage who are going to tell us a little bit more about the campaign from various perspectives. First, I want you all to please help me introduce the founding executive director of Prevention Access Campaign and the U equals U movement, Mr. U equals U himself, Bruce Richmond. Up there.
Where? There?
Yes,
Am I
middle,
speaking now?
yes.
I thought I had time to go to the bathroom. I was going back there. My God. Okay, this is. Hi. So last night I was on Grindr last night, and I thought, wow, you know, so many people know about U equals U on Grindr. We're doing a really good job, and even someone said to me, "You're one of those U equals U guys," and I was like, "Yeah, come on over." But then. And then I realized this is like a very biased sample. We're at an HIV conference, of course everyone knows here. But the thing is, we really are doing amazing work together. My mantra for the last few years as the campaign became a global movement has been, look what we did. Look what we did. Because it puts me in that place of awe and gratitude and connection to our community. Look what we did. 3 years ago, we issued a consensus statement with the top scientists who study transmission risk to clear up mixed messages and to confirm that U equals U was indeed true, 2016. And we made a video with people living with HIV to demand that all of us, not just privileged men like myself, but all of us have this information. And our idea was to use that statement, the video, and our voices to change the narrative about our bodies. We would recruit, engage influential people and organizations to join us in confirming what we knew was true. So Carrie Foote and I, who's on there, sent the consensus statement to some folks at Durban 2016, the big AIDS conference, and said, could you print this out and give this to really important people? And they were like, no, we don't know where a printer is, we're too busy. And Carrie and I were like, this is gonna be important, this is gonna be really important, please share it. And nobody did. So we were disappointed, but we came right back to truth and science, and miracles started to happen. New York City Department of Health became the first public health body in the world to confirm U equals U. And then right after that, at USCA 2016, NASTAD, under Murray Penner's leadership, became the first national nonprofit organization in North America to declare U equals U. And so at the same time, we sat down with our federal partners, with the CDC, NIH, and HHS, and we said, we demand an update to the risk assessment about our bodies. And the conversation over the course of that year was intense. At times, there was some yelling, mostly me. There was some swearing, me once, and I apologize. But it was really productive, and we got to a place that really changed the world with the CDC, NIH, HHS, and the other federal health departments releasing their statement about effectively no risk of transmission, and then recently also saying that the grantees and public health departments can use the U equals U language. You can use cannot, do not, no risk, zero risk, undetectables, untransmittable. So it was a really exciting time. We had, over the last 3 years, we had the CDC on board, the WHO, UNAIDS, and now we're at a place where there are over 900 official partner organizations and nearly 100 countries. That's almost half the countries in the world. They serve every key affected population. So I don't want to hear that U equals U is only for one population. It's for everyone with HIV, everyone. They're saying B equals B in Turkey. They're saying S equals S in Zambia. They're saying N equals N in the Netherlands. I equals I in Brazil. H equals H in Russia. And the CDC's equivalent in China has issued their own U equals U campaign. This is nothing about us without us on an unprecedented global scale because of all of you. Amazing. This is, you. It's wait, no. This is people power. This is us. This is all of us. And we're refusing to let anyone make decisions about our bodies ever again. So yes, I struck a match, okay? But it ignited because of the amazing, brilliant, and courageous people. Many are in this room right now. So our steering committee, our U equals U steering committee, our founding task force, and actually anybody here that has shared this message, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or just telling someone in your family, it all matters. Please look at each other. Meet eyes with someone at your table and say, we did it together. We did it together. And, okay, now I want to talk about my foot. Now I want to talk about this. So, 1,000 pounds of U equals U brochures fell on my foot, which has got to be a metaphor in that. And it broke it and tore the ligaments. And so for about 6 weeks, I was in this really ugly boot and big crutches. And most of the time, I was traveling around. And it was really hard, and it hurt a lot. But my bone has healed, and the ligaments are healing. And that's where I feel like we are with the campaign in the United States. The first 3 years was a lot of fighting, surprisingly within our own communities around this. A lot of anger, a lot of rage. And I think we're now at the place where we really can do less fighting and more educating. You know, where we can come together and focus as a first priority, not on prep. Prep is really important, but the first priority is the 400,000 people that are not getting the care that they need, and that every day, they are most of them slowly dying and progressing towards AIDS because they don't have the care and the treatment and the services that they need. That's where our focus needs to be. And also on prep, but that's first. We have to make sure that they get the care and the treatment and the services that all of us deserve if they choose to get to undetectable. And also, we have to realize that there are hundreds of thousands of people right now in the United States who are suffering because they and others think they're infectious, and they're not. That's an ugly word, and it's an ugly feeling. We have an unprecedented opportunity to lift the stigma that we have been living with and dying from for decades. But we have to work together, and this is why I'm so excited that Murray Penner is now running North America with a primary focus in the United States to bring organizations to focus on how U equals U plays a foundational role in ending the epidemic, and to improve the lives of people living with HIV, and to forever change what it means to live and to love with HIV around the world. We are family. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Next, help me welcome to the stage the Deputy Commissioner for the New York City Department of Health, who also led the first public health department in the United States to sign on to U equals U consensus, Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis.
Hello. Good afternoon. So I get the doctor job and I have some slides. I'd like to think that rather than an elder, I'm more of a bad bitch, but I'll take elder if I need it. So my job is to give you a little tour of U equals U from the science perspective and really talk a bit about what it was like to be the first public health official at the first public health department in the world to declare very boldly and loudly that U, in fact, is equal to U. So when I used to do this talk years ago and had to show the data about U equals U, I was arguing I was presenting to make an argument. And now, this is how I do it. Here are all the recent and pivotal clinical studies that prove that undetectable is, in fact, untransmittable. HPTN 052, 0 transmissions if virally suppressed. Partners PrEP demonstration project, 0 transmissions if suppressed or people were on PrEP. Partner study, that row of dots all on, 0. No transmissions. Opposites attract, 0. And my favorite, Partners 2, you'd have to try to have uncondomless sex for 419 years, sounds fun, right, to have an HIV transmission. So really, where is the question? Where is the debate? And I think, as you heard from Bruce, the debate is over. U, in fact, is equal to U. Data has proven it. No more debate. But there are still naysayers. There are people that say that if someone has a detectable virus in their genital fluid, they could theoretically transmit HIV. If people have blips, they could theoretically transmit HIV. And my favorite other one is that someone with an undetectable viral load with an STI could theoretically transmit HIV. They just don't. So it's over. Data over dogma. We already have the proof. This is not about a provider's comfort level. It's about science and data, destroying stigma and the zero divide that has damaged so many lives and relationships in this epidemic. Suppressed viruses don't transmit. End of the story. Period. And in fact, not sharing this information with your clients, patients, friends, lovers is withholding data that is life-saving, life-prolonging, and stigma-busting. Now, and get ready for this. You have to listen to what I'm going to say now. If at this point in this struggle you are not with us, you're against us. It is irresponsible public health to not spread the word, the gospel, that undetectable is equal to untransmittable. So if you're not with us, get with us. Now, the other part of this is that this message was beautiful, it's really important, but there's a story of how it happened. It built up. But it really starts a while back, even before there was U equals U, and I think we heard about the Swiss statement. When this came out in 2008, so many people were uncomfortable because it just didn't feel like they had data, but they did. And the statement was clear. An HIV-positive individual just doesn't transmit HIV if they're virally suppressed. But people weren't willing to accept it. Flash forward, July 2016, to one of the earlier consensus statements from the Prevention Access Campaign that said undetectable is equal to untransmittable. That's a lot of years between the Swiss statement and this. But then a couple of rapturous things happened. First, the NIH says things like 100% of virally suppressed people will not transmit the virus to their partners. The chance of HIV infection from a virally suppressed individual is? 0. Yeah, let's debate it. So the NIH said, no, you cannot transmit HIV. So then it became really easy for the Department of Health in New York City to say, well, the data shows it, so there you go. U is equal to U, New York City signs on. The CDC then follows and really signs on to U equals U by effectively saying there's no risk transmission. New York State signed on, and then a torrent of other people signed on. And I think Bruce has talked to you about that a lot. Literally changing the world and removing stigma in the most aggressive move that HIV has ever seen in the history of the epidemic. So, let's talk a little bit about what we did. So you can say whatever you want. U is equal to U, you can sign on, but you gotta walk the walk and talk the talk. Everything that you do in public health that revolves around HIV has to change to mirror this. One fantastic example, if you've not seen it yet, is the recently released New York State guidance written by a lot of New York City Department of Health folks that give providers ideas of how to better implement U equals U in their practice settings. Go visit that at hivguidelines.org. It's worth a read. We also, in New York City, put up FAQs for providers and for people living with HIV or interested in this area to learn more about U equals U. So you can't just sign on, you gotta shift things and prove that you really believe that the data is true. You can't have things that say there's a risk of transmitting HIV if people are virally suppressed when you shift your entire dogma, your entire sort of thought process into the U equals U space. And we also have done a lot of work in New York to support the notion of viral suppression and undetectability. One that we're really proud of is scaling up a really important project by Housing Works. This was a part of our Ending the Epidemic strategy. It's a multi-domain campaign, this undetectables campaign, that really looked at ways that we could support people living with HIV to live healthier lives, to become virally suppressed, and have that great side effect of treatment, which is that they don't transmit HIV. We've done it through very aggressive means, including providing people financial incentives to stay virally suppressed. That means some dollars in your pocket if you maintain viral suppression. And guess what? It works. More to come. So, beyond that, we also think that it's important to start people on medicines on the day of their diagnosis. I remember when I was a fellow in 2006, in infectious diseases, the idea of starting everyone on HIV meds seemed weird. And whenever we tried to do it, there was always pushback. The data don't show it, don't do it, don't do it. Well, that's over now. It's pretty clear. If you're newly diagnosed with HIV, if you're willing to do it, you should start on the same day whenever possible. Why wait? We don't wait for other things. I don't say, oh, I'm sorry, you have tuberculosis. Let's think about it for a little bit. No. That's weird. So really the idea is if you got something, treat it. So we've been working really hard to launch a lot of programs, and in our sexual health clinics, if you're diagnosed with HIV, on the day of your diagnosis, we start you on meds if you want to. Really important. And by the way, thank you. By the way, what happens is almost 94% of those people are retained in care 6 months after their start. And so there's another really important lesson that I've learned from U equals U, which is that HIV treatment is really a guiding principle for everything that we do in terms of ending the epidemic, whether it's for people living with HIV or individuals at risk for HIV who may be PrEP candidates. We've done a lot of work in New York City to make it clear that prevention means somehow interacting with healthcare. So you can see some of our campaigns behind us in Spanish and English, like really focusing on cis and trans women, really making it clear that if you want to go on PrEP, that's a really good strategy. And what happens in New York City is that we're seeing great success. So this is a little data slide just to show you that about 40% of our men who have sex with men in New York City are in fact on PrEP. And if you look, it actually stays across race. So it's a lot of other places experience high PrEP rates in white MSM, but lower PrEP rates in others. That's not what we see in New York because of the effort to launch it where people actually seek their care. But it's not all about PrEP. In fact, the PrEP model is completely hanging upon our strategy for HIV treatment. One of our top priorities is treating people living with HIV because what happens is that they stay healthy and they have an amazing side effect of their drugs. They don't transmit HIV. The primary goal is treatment. The secondary outcome we care about is prevention. And as Tony Fauci said, U equals U is truly the foundation of any strategy to end the epidemic of HIV. You get 2 for 1. And in New York, we still have some work to do, but we're getting there. About 74% of all the people living with HIV in New York City are virally suppressed. So we're really moving in the right direction and moving there very quickly. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what U equals U has taught me from the perspective of creating a prevention strategy is all you have to do is do what's right for the individual. You do what's right for the person. And if you do what's right for the person, you're going to figure out a way to end HIV and end an epidemic. we have this idea of a status neutral strategy. And what that means is that HIV test is a gateway. If you're positive, you enter the gateway of service and care in New York City. And that gateway means that if you are following guidelines, you are starting HIV medicines, maybe even on the first day of your diagnosis. We give you quality care. And if you support that quality care, we have this end goal of having you engaged in treatment. And if you're engaged in treatment, guess what happens? You become virally suppressed, and U equals you don't transmit. Same for the PrEP side. HIV negative folks, if they're at risk, they enter the system. That test opens the gateway, and it's the same model we use for HIV care. We look at them and say, if we engage you with high quality preventative services, you engage in prevention, and if you need PrEP, you go on it, and then you can't get HIV. So those two things in combination are a winning strategy, but ultimately it requires government and other agencies to think creatively and not always work in silos, because those silos work against us over and over and over again. Thank you very much.
Woo! Thank you, Dr. D. Ladies and gentlemen, now help me welcome the Impacto LGBT founder and director and my fellow Greater Than AIDS ambassador, Victor Claros.
Buenas tardes, mi gente. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están todos y todas y todex? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm not as young as all my folks right here, so I wrote my speech and I'm going to read it today, but it comes from my heart. I would like to share the stage with my very good friend, Martin Vasquez, who passed away last April, rest in peace, to complication from AIDS. And also, I'd like to thank NMAC, Prevention Access Campaign, and Bruce. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for taking the lead. Thank you so much. Hola. 3 years ago, I met a very good special person, someone who eventually became a very good friend and mentor, my friend Fernando de Hoyos. Do you remember him? Yeah. I don't think he's here today, but he introduced me to U equals U. I think in my heart, I always knew, and I believed I could not pass HIV if I was undetectable. However, I felt I was the only person who has those thoughts. I could not disclose to anyone how I felt because I didn't want others to judge me or think I was crazy or trying to create drama or division. Let me tell you, it wasn't so much the message, but the person and the way he executed and delivered that message when I mostly needed it. I remember I was going through a very rough time in my personal life. Fernando's passion, assertiveness, commitment, and conviction was infectious. And that day, I was infected with U equals U. And you know what else? My life has, and it will never be the same since that day. The way my friend talked about it empowered me and took to a greater level, not only my love and commitment to keep working for my communities, but the love and respect for myself. The information I received that day destroyed whatever little doubt or internalized HIV stigma I still had left. That day, I chose to become a stronger voice, a warrior, a soldier, a fighter. And I started not only to promote U equals U, but I also committed myself to talk about it with anyone and everyone, anywhere and everywhere I went. And most importantly, I committed myself to protect it and defend it as the precious and invaluable treasure U equals U is. So today, I'm really nervous, yes, but I'm really happy also. I would like to ask you for a big favor, because now is the time to put aside all those labels that sometimes cause more damage than good. HIV negative, HIV positive, health department, MSM, heterosexual, undocumented, illegal, transgender, Republican, Democrat, Christian, etc. Now more than ever, we need to build bridges, not walls. And for this reason, I'm inviting all of you today Let's join efforts. Let's grab each other's hand, and let's commit to carry and deliver the U equals U message. And if you have not started yet, then now is the time to start an endless life-changing chain. I believe that U equals U is not only another tool, like many people say, in the box of tools to help us protect others. I believe in my heart that U equals U is the most important tool that is and will continue helping us eradicate HIV stigma and saving millions and millions of lives around the world. I pray that my speech has the same effect Fernando's infectious words had in my life. But most importantly, I pray that everyone here today become as U equals U infectious as I became 3 years ago. So now I'd like to ask you to please stand up for 1 second, 30 seconds. And to, with me, raise your hand. This is how much I believe in U equals U. You see this? This is how passionate I am, and this is how much I believe in it. So I'd like to ask you to also commit yourself to tell everybody, to talk about it, to defend it. This is not about being HIV positive or being HIV negative. It's about helping everybody else in our communities. So I invite you to say it with me 3 times. U equals U. 1, 2, 3. U equals U. U equals U. U equals U. And lastly, let's always remember that this is our time, our moment, and our victory. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you. Thank you. And now, finally, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome model, trans activist, and expert peer educator, Yonsei from the Bronx.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yonsei. I'm from the Bronx, New York, and I identify as a woman of trans experience. I am an ambassador of U equals U. U equals U means undetectable, untransmittable. It's been 20 years since I've been diagnosed with HIV. I was still in high school. I thought I wasn't going to live past my 25th birthday. I didn't even want to take meds because I thought they were harsh and the cause of most of the HIV deaths. My friends were dropping like flies. I felt very isolated, and I felt very unsure about myself. I had many unhealthy relationships, some very toxic and very abusive, lots of unprotected sex, not knowing that I could reinfect myself. I was hopeless and lost. My self-esteem was very low. I didn't care. My family turned their backs on me. Most of the time I spent to myself just because I was ashamed of the stigma that comes with HIV and AIDS. When I heard about U equals U, I was not on any meds, and I didn't really believe it at first. I was a non-progressor, a long-term survivor. That means my viral load and T cells pretty much stayed the same for about 17 years. Then it was time for me to start meds. At first, I was pretty hesitant to start meds just because I didn't want to deal with any of the side effects. But thanks to U equals U, I was able to understand more about the importance of having an untransmittable viral load. I have been undetectable since I started my meds 3 years ago. Thanks to U equals U, I have a healthy, active sex life. When I disclose to my partners, I also talk about U equals U. It helps me to explain that I'm unable to give someone HIV, and I think that's really awesome. It gives me a chance to feel normal, not like I'm considered undesirable. Sometimes when I used to disclose and I had a viral load, I wasn't able to say I can't transmit HIV to someone because there was a possibility I could. U equals U in mental health. When it comes to mental health, I have to be on my A game. Without a healthy mindset, I can't take care of myself. Remembering to take my meds every night has been challenging, but once I remember to I take my dose right away. Isolation was something I dealt with for much of my life because I was feeling different in many ways. I felt like a plainclothes transgender. That means I was forced to live my life in the clothes of my giving sex assigned at birth. This can hinder any person from wanting to do anything, even as simple as taking their meds properly. U equals U has done wonders for my self-esteem. I'm not afraid to tell someone I'm HIV positive. I've never been sick where I've had to be hospitalized, so I'm very grateful for that. I feel sexy now that I'm undetectable. There's a glow about me. The most important thing to me is my family. U equals U has benefited my family, also allows them not to worry about me so much and not to be afraid that I'm going to transmit the virus to them or their children. Like if we're playing around or something and I got cut, they don't freak out thinking they're going to get infected. With some family members, I used to feel like they were afraid of me, afraid to eat off my plate or drink after me. Not anymore, that's because I'm undetectable and untransmittable. I have been largely ignored when it comes to HIV prevention. Partly is because there are limited places I feel comfortable going to for care. I was lucky enough to have a primary care doctor who specializes in HIV care for 15 years, and she also knows about transgender needs, which is very, very important to me. My health care is widely stigmatized and misunderstood. Those unfamiliar with the health care needs of transgender people might portray transition-related care as cosmetic or a choice. I am being treated for gender dysphoria. In order to receive some surgeries, if not all, the doctors want you to be healthy. This means taking your meds to reduce the viral load. Someone with a high viral load might be susceptible to complications while trying to heal the body after surgery. This is also another reason why U equals U is important. Today, I'm proud to be married to a man who is HIV negative, and we have a very healthy, active sex life. That's because he isn't afraid I'm going to transmit the virus to him. This means a lot to me because I wasn't always able to say I love you to anyone. My husband is on this journey with me, and I'll do my very best to protect him. U equals U works. It's been 2 years since I've been married, and my husband and I don't use condoms. He is not on PrEP anymore, and he is still HIV negative. The formula works. I am living proof that it works. For a long time, I went without sexual interaction because I was tired of explaining my HIV status to every individual I was having sex with. Barriers facing my community when it comes to U equals U are funding. Funding is the main key. We need funding for advertisement in our low-income communities. I feel like this message is being kept a secret. Not many trans women know about U equals U, and that is a problem. We are counted out and left behind and not respected, treated as some kind of mental disorder. But we are not going to be counted out, not as long as I'm around because I'm a bad bitch. I am just as equal and have the right to access this information just like anyone else. Another barrier has been housing. Housing for transgender women. We are being discriminated against when it comes to housing, to finding housing and maintaining housing. Housing is a key component to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Without housing, how are we supposed to take our medicine properly? Acceptance. It is very important that we be called by our proper pronouns and what we identify as. It is important not to be disrespected by our community. It is important that when we step into a doctor's office, that we are heard and we are able to be honest about our sexual behaviors without being judged and not rushed out of the doctor's office simply because the doctor does not take the time to understand the needs of the transgender woman. People should stop shaming sex work. Sometimes it's the only means for survival, the only way to eat. We pay for hotels to sleep through sex work. Sex work should be decriminalized, not in all states, not just Nevada. We as trans women need to stop fighting amongst ourselves because we have work to do. I believe in U equals U. So let's start a new infection of the brain by spreading the word that U equals U does work. It will work if you work it.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much, Yonsei.
Amazing. So amazing.
Guys, give them another round of applause to our amazing panelists who are up here today. So I'm going to start, Yonsei, with you.
Okay.
But you just made a statement and you talked about how persons of trans experience are often discriminated against and so forth.
Yes.
And having to be, for some, the only option is to engage in sex work. But before I pose my question to you and to every trans person of trans experience in the building, I just want to take the time to let you know that I love you. And I'm taking a moment that has nothing to do with this to recognize something right now, because my heart is so heavy, because yesterday I learned of Bailey Reeves, who is a 17-year-old black trans woman who was shot to death in Baltimore. And then this morning I woke up and I learned of B-Love, a 21-year-old black trans woman who was tied up, shot multiple times, and then burned inside of a car.
Yes.
We as a community, we got work to do. We sit around and we talk about how much we as organizations support trans women. We tweet about trans women, and we use trans women as fucking props to fund your grants. Yeah. But if you're an organization or an institution, a pharmaceutical company, whoever you are in this room, and you don't hire or you have not hired black trans women on your staff, fuck you. Whoa.
Yes.
I am gonna lose some contracts, I am gonna lose some friends, but I don't care, because this entire movement was started by black trans women, and we owe them everything that we have. And so when you guys return home to you institutions, to the grantees, to the pharmaceutical companies like Gilead, who provides these $1 million grants to organizations, somewhere in your criteria next time, how about writing in there that that organization must hire trans women and have them on staff, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
I have on makeup.
Okay. So, Yonsei,
Yes.
you talked about how important that U equals U is to you and how we can better use it to help people in our communities.
Yes.
Can you provide us with the most important thing that we should all be able to do to support people within your community, and how we can actually reach people of the trans experience to let them feel included and let them know that you does equals you for people of the trans experience as well?
Thank you for everything you just said. It's very powerful, and it needed to be said.
Thank you.
And I'm glad it came from someone else and not me. First of all, I think we need to be made to feel comfortable. When a transgender woman walks into a room, we're not a hee-hee, ha-ha, or kee-cackle, no matter how tall, how short. Transgender is not about a look, it's about a feeling. It's how you feel inside, deep inside. Also, we need, like I spoke about, we need housing for trans women because we are being discriminated against. People need to stop killing us just for wanting to be who we are. Every day I have to, and myself, have to worry about being murdered every time I step outside my home. Just because I want to eat, or just because I just want to catch the sun, I have to watch my back every time, every single time. And the Bronx is no joke. We need funding, like I spoke about before, for advertisement, because I didn't know about U equals U until maybe last year, and it's been around since 2016. Why is that? Why are we always left behind and we're not in the forefront of it? I can't blame my transgender sisters because we just don't know. We don't have the proper resources to plummet ourselves forward. I also believe that a lot has to do with the government. Yes. A lot of it. I don't want to speak too much on that because I don't want to upset him and cut off my benefits. No, I think we're coming along. We're not where we're supposed to be, but we are definitely coming along. And it's a sisterhood. As long as we band together and we fight this fight together, there is no way we can be left behind.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So Victor, I want to pose the same question to you as well. can you provide me with the most important thing that we should all be doing to ensure and make sure that we're not leaving the Latinx community behind, that the Latinx community is being included on all of the conversations and on this initiative and the movement centered around U equals U?
I think that, thank you once again. I'm really happy to be here because Latinx people also deserve to be on stage. It makes me really nervous when we talk about statistics, about numbers, because I don't really think that the numbers that we have that are presented by CDC and other sources reflect the truth, the reality of our communities when it comes to HIV. Our HIV, we still get people who are diagnosed with last stage, people diagnosed with AIDS, and they're diagnosed at a hospital, something that I used to read like 20 years ago and still happening. We need more funding, more resources. We need more programs in Spanish.
Yeah. Language matters.
And not only in Spanish, but we need programs and campaigns that reflect the reality of Latino immigrants, because not all of us were born in the United States. Many of us came here for many reasons, trying to flee wars or gangs and other social problems that we're actually having in our home countries. So I think it's time to pay attention to that and to help us. I invite everybody greater than AIDS to continue creating campaigns in Spanish for our Latinos in this area, in the whole country. And I invite every Department of Health in the country also to create campaigns with faces like mine, with faces of people who represent our communities here.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if we have an accent. It doesn't matter if we don't say things the right way, but I think it's time for that to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. D.
Hello.
Hey. So you've been courageous in the U equals U movement, and we're all grateful for your leadership. There are many ways to put U equals U in the message into our communities to help understand them and have it be motivational to help end the epidemic, or sometimes to shake up the community and start conversations in some way, and ensuring that the message out there is what's important. We often hear that the U equals U message isn't easily understood in some communications or communities, or that providers don't want to talk to their patients about U equals U because they might think that it's a false hope and it will lead to people not taking their medication. What would you say to people who say the message isn't working for their community?
Then you better learn how to talk to your community better, is what I would have to say. So I feel like we've heard that a lot, I think, from the Department of Health perspective, from providers who say my patients don't understand or can't understand, which I think really reflects a deficit in communication with your community. So I think that the answer really is, if it doesn't work, everyone makes mistakes, right? We're still learning how to do this. And so if it doesn't work, change what you're doing. I mean, there's so many public health resources out there that are available to help providers learn how to communicate this important message to their patients and to their and other service providers to their clients. I think really it is malpractice not to share this information.
Yeah.
And I think it's poor social services practice not to share this communication. And frankly, in my opinion, it represents some degree of laziness to not figure out how to best communicate things to your folks. And so, the resources are there. You have the resources, we have the resources. There's a growing amount of resources to teach people how to do this, but ultimately, you have to energize this. You have to make this a movement that you think is critical and really focus on what can I do better, not I don't think my people can understand. Or, the way it reads to people who are living with HIV is that somehow they don't deserve to know. And that anger that we heard about, that anger is real. It really is, to find out years after it's been sort of screamed on the top of the mountain. And I'll sort of personally say, we tried in New York, but we're gonna take that back and think about it. That's a failure. We need to make sure trans women know everything about U equals U, and it's our job to figure out how to do it. So that's my answer. It's
Bravo.
yeah,
Plain and simple.
energize it and figure out how to talk to your people. And if the message needs to be nuanced differently, then nuance it. But it's our job to teach people. So that's the other part. Really quickly, when we started talking about U equals U, a lot of the folks in New York who focus on public health said, well, no one knows what undetectable means. That's our job to teach people. So we need to teach them what undetectable means, not to say, well, they're never going to understand it. That's just garbage.
Right. Thank you, Dr. D. So a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with my brother, Marcus Stanley, about this exact plenary here, and he gave a little bit of pause. He has this notion that if I don't have anything nice to say necessarily all the time, I won't say it at all. But I said, brother, what is it? Tell me what's pressing. And he raised the question that I had never asked myself before, because it put me in a position to have to recognize that there is some privilege that comes with being a young black man who has had both parents in his homes, who can rely on his parents' insurance to be able to gain access to good insurance and to be able to get the medical care that I need so that I can achieve an undetectable viral load. So what do Yonsei and Victor, what do you guys say about people who may not be able to achieve an undetectable viral load? Because there's a notation that because I'm undetectable, I'm better than you. That's not the case. It's never the case, and I never want anybody to feel or think that. But the science is the science. It's true, it's factual, it's proven. What do we say, or what should we do to ensure that other people are able to still reach that undetectable viral load? And Dr. D, feel free to chime in as well.
I think that since the beginning of the epidemic, people have been rejected, discriminated against, and stigmatized simply for being HIV positive. I think that it's time for us to keep on working together to look for solutions. Mm-hmm. Being undetectable or detectable doesn't define who we are. The only thing that, even when you are not undetectable, that I'm contagious of, is the resilience that we have to fight this virus and this system that sometimes doesn't help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yonsei?
In New York, we have incentives, which we give people to, when they become undetectable, to maintain their undetectable. They get $100. They get $100 here. They get $100 for filling their meds. They get $100 for, it's always 100, 100, 100. So you keep the 100 coming, and that helps. Come on, it helps. It helps, and it helps to not have to go out and do sex work. It helps to not have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. And, just because I'm undetectable, you're right, it doesn't mean that I'm better than someone else. But it also means that I can help. I can be a face for somebody who maybe is struggling to maintain their regimen.
Right.
Because it's hard out there sometimes, especially when you're alone. When you're alone, you have no hope, you have no dreams, you don't want to do anything, you soak in yourself, you become depressed, and I think mental health plays a large part in staying undetectable also.
Bravo.
We need, mental health is health. You have to stay healthy.
Thank you. And finally, Bruce, congratulations on this amazing movement. We owe you so much gratitude and appreciation for everything, for having that passion to be there. Before we conclude, I do have one more question for you, but I also have a gift that I have to give to you. We've talked about, and I've talked with you this week about the United States government and what the government has done to recognize U equals U. I sat with some folks, some friends of mine over at the United States Capitol the last couple of days, and I have a present for you and the entire U equals U Prevention Access campaign that reads, Certificate of Congressional Recognition presented to the Prevention Access campaign on the occasion of their U equals U undetectable equals untransmittable campaign. Whereas the Prevention Access campaign is a health equity initiative to end the dual epidemics of HIV and HIV-related stigma by empowering people with and vulnerable to HIV with accurate and meaningful information about their social, sexual, and reproductive health. And whereas The Prevention Access Campaign's Undetectable Equals Untransmittable was launched in 2016 when a group of people living with HIV created a groundbreaking consensus statement in partnership with global experts to clarify the science surrounding U equals U. And whereas U equals U is a global community of HIV advocates, activists, researchers, and more than the 900 community partners from nearly 100 countries utilizing to dismantle the revolutionary but largely known fact that people living with HIV who are undetectable cannot transmit the HIV. The U equals U campaign dismantles HIV stigma on the community, clinical, and personal level. It encourages people living with HIV to start and stay on treatment, which keeps them and their partners healthy, strengthens advocacy efforts for universal access and treatment care, as well as diagnostics to save lives and bring us closer to ending the epidemic once and for all. Therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the United States Congress, I take great pride in recognizing and congratulating the Prevention Access Campaign on their U equals U movement. I am honored to join survivors, advocates, medical professionals, colleagues, and supporters in paying tribute to the U equals U on this momentous occasion. Your commitment, your dedication to this community is deserving of the respect, admiration, and commendation of the United States Congress. Bruce, congratulations. This is for you. Congratulations. I love you.
Love you too.
No problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, lastly,
Yours.
as we conclude this panel, guys, thank you so much. Bruce, just one last thing. How can people living with HIV continue to help end this epidemic once and for all?
Well, yeah, when I just snuck a peek at that question.
I'm sorry.
I want to change that. I want to focus on how can people living with HIV help people living with HIV who are suffering. I want to focus on how can people living with HIV help the 400,000 people that are not engaged in care right now. And I want to focus on how can people living with HIV help the hundreds of thousands of people with HIV who are undetectable and have no idea that they can't transmit HIV in this country. And the byproduct, by the way, is that we're helping to end the epidemic. If you focus on getting people with HIV the care and the treatment that all of us deserve to get to undetectable, if we choose to get to undetectable, and it's just a personal decision, it's not a public health responsibility ever to get to undetectable, that's for us, that will get us to the end of the epidemic. We have to link getting people with HIV, the treatment and the care that we need, link that to ending the epidemic. We have to, because that will save our lives and prevent new transmissions. And the way that I think that we can do that, and this is a longer conversations, we need to organize better in the United States. People living with HIV need to come together. We need a national organization for people living with HIV. And I've seen that in other countries. I've seen it in Vietnam and in Zambia, Australia, New Zealand, and England, and Italy. They have national organizations, paid staff. And these organizations, and they have tiny numbers of people with HIV, 3,500 or 100,000. We need a national organization, and if we have that national organization, we can better hold our information providers accountable to get this information to everyone. And it's not just our healthcare providers, it's even other community members, it's HIV communications agencies. And so that's one way. And also, just kind of dovetailing on what you said earlier, is that we need that organization to have things like speakers bureaus, to make sure that when people living with HIV are in the videos of rich organizations or on stage, we get paid. Everyone here is getting paid, except Dimitri, because he can't. We pay all of our speakers. We give them per diem. We give them travel because they deserve it. And when you go to a video, and even some of our leaders do this, you're being shot on this video, and there's the director's being paid, the producer's being paid, but the person living with HIV is not. Don't do it.
Thank you, Bruce.
This is all part of empowering. There's a lot more, but the final thing I want to say is if we had this organized community, we'd have smart advocacy. When you send people to Capitol Hill, This used to be our argument. I'm going to stand up because this is so important, because it's going to help the 400,000, and that's who we really got to focus on, the 400,000. When you go to Capitol Hill, our argument used to be, we need the treatment and care for us, for the well-being of people with HIV. And healthcare is a human right. Everyone in this room believes that, but a lot of policymakers may not. But what they care about is the bottom line and prevention. So now when we go to Capitol Hill, we must say, please, please, we need healthcare, we need housing for people with HIV and services and mental health counseling so that we can get healthy and get to undetectable. Because if you get us undetectable, we'll stop transmitting HIV, and it'll get us to the end of the epidemic. Does that make sense?
Right. Woo! Right, good job, bro. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Please join me in thanking these amazing panelists for their time and their courage to be here today. Guys, thank you so much.